Trey Lance, first week of OTAs, media sees one day, but he practices. I don't know if he was there. I think there was a Monday practice. They may have had 3 or 4 practices this week. In front of the media, it was 17 to 20. It's pretty good. And then, according to Pro Football Focus, they heard from a source that his best day ever essentially was yesterday, that he just wowed people. Now, I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's interesting. All of a sudden, like, the leaks are beginning more plentiful, and we didn't hear this stuff last year as much. What do you think?
I mean, it is, I find it refreshing, right? I was sick of all of the leaks that seem to be unsubstantiated negative rumors. And now it feels as if the media machine is pushing out what I want to hear, which is, whether it's truth or not, it's what I want to hear at this moment in time. I need some optimism. I need some hope. I need to believe in Trey Lance, which I do. What jumped off the screen to me, which was very palpable over video, and I'm curious as to your impressions in person, just how important and just how different was Trey Lance's confidence out there, was his outward appearance in those sessions.
I mean, it was obvious. They say players take their biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. You could see it with a lot of these guys. I'm going to talk about some other year 2 players in a little bit. But with Trey, I mean, he looks like a quarterback. Interesting about what's going on right now. Like, this wasn't part of training camp last year. He was healthy, but in preseason, he broke his finger.
Right.
And in the time, athletes are like, it's fine. It's good. It's no problem. Because they're tough guys. And you love that. But then after the season, when it's over, they'll be like, yo, yeah, I didn't tell you the truth on that one. Like, Now that it's all good, let me just tell you, it was bothering me all freaking year, and I couldn't fully extend my index finger. Like, I had to relearn how to throw. It's like, oh, you told us it was all good. So, yeah, that really affected him. And I think maybe it's why they used him as a running back against Arizona, because he literally had a broken finger. So that's not there anymore. That's good.
Did you interpret that? I know that I can't recall who in the media it was, but someone took that and sort of ran with the narrative of, well, that sounds like an excuse. That feels like Trey Lance coming out and saying, I didn't perform well last year, but wait, there was a reason for it. That's not the sense that I got of it. It seemed very honest. It seemed very open. I was much more in the camp of what you just described there, that last year he couldn't talk about it because it was active. You can't give that sort of ammunition to defenders, right? You can't have them coming. If you have to pop in for a couple of plays, they're going to be all over that finger, just like they were with Jimmy Garoppolo towards the end of the year. They were grabbing at that hand, attempting to aggravate that injury. It's just part of the NFL. Did you feel Trey Lance was making excuses at that point? Or was this just legitimate honesty and transparency?
That's funny. That's like the football code, right? If you admit it, it's an excuse. I didn't see it as an excuse. Maybe his teammates would, or I didn't see it that way. Maybe his critics would.
Right.
To me, as a journalist, I appreciated him telling the truth, because there's so much of don't say anything in football culture, right? Like, thank you. That explains so much.
Right.
There's so much about last season I still don't understand. But the fact that his finger was really broken and he couldn't extend it maybe explains why he didn't get that job.
Yeah, it makes sense why you wouldn't be able to turn over the reins. There was certainly a point in time last season where a lot of fans, even those that are optimistic, even those that said Jimmy Garoppolo deserved to start at the beginning of the year, at 3-5, it felt as if maybe it was time to give Trey Lance a try. Now, obviously that worked out in the 49ers' favor not to do that, but you wonder if it wasn't for the finger, if it would have happened.
Now, it's ironic, or maybe it's ironic, is that Jimmy messed up his finger as well. It was his thumb. And Jimmy had to play through it, and Trey was able to not do it. But I guess, I mean, better to have your 29-year-old veteran who you're not committed to long-term to gut it out than your 21-year-old rookie who doesn't really need to play through an injury when he's 21, I guess.
Right. And with Jimmy, it seemed to be a matter of pain tolerance, right? If you can tolerate the pain, the grip was still there enough. He had enough tensile strength to be able to throw the ball. It sounded as if in the way Trey described it, it really was a shift in throwing motion. I mean, the inability to have that last finger coming off the ball come off successfully and having to shift it to now replicate what he was used to doing with the index finger with his middle finger instead. I mean, that's relearning how to throw the football, essentially.
Right. And it's something you could probably do in practice when you're thinking about it. But the whole thing about playing quarterback is you can't think about your mechanics when you're in the pocket reading defense. All that stuff has to be like muscle memory.
Right.
Because
under fire.
On the secondary, right? You're not even looking at the pass rush.
Yeah.
You focus on the coverage. So we didn't really see him have to do that. I mean, he was inaccurate against Arizona. He was. And he was inaccurate against Seattle. But then when he came back later in the season, and he said he still wasn't 100% against Houston, completed 60, almost 70% of his throws. So I think
what I saw in Seattle when I first saw Trey Lance in person, when I went to the game up there and watched him, I was very close to the 49ers sideline. And so I watched the warm-ups, and I had my eye on Trey Lance the entire time when it was the foursome, right? He and Jimmy and the two receivers throwing back and forth. And it was just so apparent that he was wrapped up in his throwing motion. And after every throw, he was popping his arm and redoing the throwing motion just to get the snap back in it. At the time, I just thought that, he was a rookie working through his mechanics. Now it makes more sense to me. The two jive together, in my opinion. What I hear from Trey Lance doesn't sound like an excuse. It matches up with what I observed last year, and it helps to explain some things. I'm glad that he came out and said it. I don't view it as any type of an excuse. I just view it as transparency.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, it's really too bad that happened. I mean, he got that injury, and I want to say the final preseason game or the second to last. I think there's only 3 now. I think it was the last one.
Right.
He was playing deep into the second quarter behind the second string offensive line, a bunch of guys who didn't make the team. And it was an unfortunate injury. It happens in football, but at the same time, maybe it could have been prevented. Too bad. It's really an unfortunate break, but I think it explains why he's drawing these rave reviews now. And I think it's very good. I just hope that they can protect him. I really just hope that they can protect him.
Let me just ask these rave reviews, trying to put it in context. When you saw the command that Trey exuded when he was out on the field for that one, admittedly, it's just one OTA, and we've got to continue this observation, and I'll be interested to hear how that evolves for you next week. But when you looked at the command that he had out there in the offense, did it appear to be a player that was in his second year that had only 2 starts under his belt, or did it feel like more than that? Do I have reason to get more optimistic here, Grant?
I mean, that's a great question, right? Like, he looked better than Jimmy normally looks in practice. And I've talked a lot that Jimmy isn't a great practice player, but he looked like a guy who'd been doing it a long time. Like, he wasn't like last year, he was really good, but he would hold the ball a while. He would sort of hunt the big play. He'd want to impress you with the big throw, with the big velocity throw, the big throw down the field. In this day, on Tuesday, he just took what the defense gave him relentlessly. Check down to the tight end, check down to the running back. A lot of short throws with touch. I mean, he wasn't like firing fastballs through like people 5 yards away. He looked like a vet. I mean, and again, I know the Niners went with Jimmy last year because he was a vet, but my whole critique with Jimmy is that he doesn't play like a vet. He's low on game experience, and he doesn't make many strides. So in a sense, he's kind of a young quarterback too. He's young at heart.
Right.
And so I feel like Trey actually looked more of a veteran than any quarterback I've seen on that field in a while.
Wow.
But it's just one practice.
Sure. Yeah. Small sample size. Got to keep observing.
It was sharp. It was on time. I mean, he wasn't trying to do too much. It was May. Let's just get through it. 17-20. And but the thing is, when he does miss, the 3 misses, each time it's like, ooh. It's like high and away in the dirt. It's like almost like if it was baseball, the catcher made it just an amazing grab. But that's kind of what like Randy Johnson was like when we were.
Is this a little bit of Charlie Sheen from Major League? Like, do we need to get Trey a pair of glasses?
Effectively wild. Yes. And that's I think when he misses, he kind of misses big, and that's like, oh man, accurate. But that was Josh Allen too. Like, accuracy is an issue. Like, whoa, just wait till the end of practice, count the completions, the attempts. I bet you he's actually pretty efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, you would think that comes back to someone who is actively working on their throwing motion, that you're going to have hiccups like that if you are in your head. The plays where I'm sure the body is speaking to him, where it's muscle memory, are the ones that come off cleaner. And those where he's up there in his noodle are probably the ones where the ball is sailing.
Also, I think there's something about Trey Lance that old school coaches love. He's like sort of like the best of both worlds, like the new school athlete at quarterback and the old school quarterback, because he wants to play quarterback.
He's a grinder.
He's a grinder. He loves the film. He wants to perfect the pocket stuff. He can do the other stuff, right? But his mentality is to like meet Kyle on his terms and not be like, I can prove that I can play my way. And I think coaches freaking love that. And Brian Greasy was talking about it yesterday. Was it yesterday? 2 days ago. And he was essentially saying like, look, I've seen him on tape. I know the skill. I can make my own assessment of the skill set. But what I really like about him is how he approaches the position. His mentality for the position. I think I don't know if it sets him apart from other young quarterbacks, but it seems like to be a very distinct part of his makeup that people like.
Did you get the sense in talking to Brian Griese that it was Trey Lance that attracted him to the position, or do you think that it was truly the Shanahan connection that has existed for some time, that regardless of who that quarterback was, Brian Griese would have been interested in the quarterback coach position?
It's a good question. I asked him that question straight up. I said, how excited are you to coach him in particular? And he was like, look, man, I just want to be a coach. That's what he said, flat out. I just wanted to be a coach. I know Kyle. There's comfort. I've known him for 25 years. I'm here because I trust Kyle. Now that I've gotten to know Trey Lance, this is what I like about him. But I think he took this job without knowing much about Trey Lance.
That's fascinating.
He was like, basically, I had 2 days to decide whether I was going to take this job. Like, he knew some about Trey Lance, but I'm sure there's a lot more now. And I'm sure the decision wasn't like all about like, oh man, me and him. I think he's basically thinking like, I've never coached before. I don't know if I can do this. This is a great opportunity. See what happens. And you know what? There's another coach in the room too, Clay Kubiak. Kubiak's son, 32 years old. And I think he's been a coach before. I have a feeling, even though he's not the quarterback coach, that he's working hand in hand, step by step with Brian Griese. Maybe early on, Griese's leaning on him because of the experience.
That makes sense. And Kubiak has been brought up more in the standard Shanahan fashion, right? From within, started out on the defensive side of the ball to really, truly learn defensive schemes first. That seems to be what Shanahan wants in his offensive coaches, to truly master the defensive side of the ball first, so that it's not as if you're designing an offense in a vacuum. You are specifically designing an offense to beat a defense, right? And in understanding what a defense does, that helps you to design a successful offense.
I sincerely hope that Clay Kubiak is the next Niners head coach after Kyle Shanahan. When Kyle Shanahan gets his 10th Super Bowl and retires, I hope Clay Kubiak gets, because Clay he was a high school English teacher. You know that?
I did not.
He was a high school head coach in Texas. Those jobs are big time.
Right.
In Houston.
Right. You got a lot of responsibility.
There more football coaches should be English teachers, man. I would love to interview that guy. But they didn't have that thing yesterday. That's too bad. 2 days ago.
So
Anyway.
So let me ask one more thing about Brian Griese. Do you think that there's a good personality match? What I noticed that I was a bit surprised about in your question to him and the video that you posted of Brian Griese's answers was he seemed a bit soft-spoken in that hallway setting that you guys were in. And for someone with a media background, as he has, I guess I expected more of a confident persona. But then when I thought about it, it seems like a pretty good match. I mean, Trey Lance came out and had a lot more confidence in the presser, as we saw, but still is a fairly soft-spoken, easy-going kind of a guy. What do you make of the initial returns of the pairing of those two, speaking specifically to the personalities?
Well, I haven't seen them interact, but I mean, Griese was asked about this, and he was extremely candid and honest, is what I have to say. And he was like, "Look, I mean, he's 7 years older than my daughter." And he said with kind of like a twinkle in his eye. He's like, I mean, like he's closer in age to my daughter than me, so like it's not just that I'm getting to know Trey; it's like a whole generational thing,
Right.
And I think so. I think, yeah. I mean, they're getting to know. They're in the getting to know each other. They're courting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We'll
It's
see.
all niceties at this
Let's
point.
see how it goes after like the first loss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If they start 0-1. How are they going to be talking to each other the next day?
Totally. What's after the first fight? How's the relationship doing?